Hi, everyone. Kenneth Lang here, doing another LinkedIn Live. Happy to have Sonal Bahl today, and she's actually coming in from Belgium, I believe. I think it's either a 5 or 6 hour time difference there, but 6 hours. Okay, cool. One of the things that I really wanted to start with, besides anything else, is really I went back and looked at my LinkedIn to find out actually how we met, because I think it's so important to think about that. We met probably, I look back, it's like last November of last year, and I think it was on Lauren Greif's call, and before that, and she had you on as a guest, and then I saw that you had your weekly things from 8 to 9, and I was so impressed by, on top of everything else, by the ability to do it every week.
Yeah. Yeah. Firstly, thanks for having me here. Ken,
Sure.
I know this is new. So I'm stoked to be one of your early guests. Do you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. And Nancy's saying, yes, I can hear you fine. Yes.
Okay. I felt like there was a bit of an echo. Yeah. So you saw her on my LinkedIn Live. Probably that's what happened.
I did, yes. And I knew Lauren because we had been, connecting here in the States.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you find Lauren? Or what was that?
Great question. It was a LinkedIn Live. Holy crap. I mean, like the year 2020, when it comes to networking, it's been LinkedIn. So there's someone that we have in common. Her name is Lee Andrews. And I was invited on Lee's LinkedIn Live to talk about ageism. And Lauren was a co-panel. And that's how we met.
Yeah, it's all so cool. And I think if there's anything positive that came out of this whole last year, it's getting a chance to meet people I probably never would have been able to meet before, or at least not easily. I mean, it's one thing to send a message on LinkedIn. It's another thing to actually talk to someone and see someone for sure.
And it's another thing to also be like, hey, you have a home in Chicago. Whenever you're around in the neighborhood or in my neck of the woods, and same for, like my friends in the United States, like, hey, anytime you're in Belgium and I find out, like, not even Belgium, like Europe, you came to Europe and you didn't look me up, like, I'm going to be so upset.
I'm sure. I know I already have my road trip planned for next year with all the people I want to try to see.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to go international. I think, what is it like there actually with COVID now? I know here we have our different areas, which are like, some are good, some aren't. Is it kind of similar to that there?
Yeah, your areas are like our countries, big countries, small countries. So it goes up and down. Overall, it's down, but you're having cases go up in the UK or the Netherlands. Any place that has like a crazy Wimbledon or a football match, or in the case of the Netherlands, a live concert, 30,000 people, 1,000 are impacted with COVID. Whenever you have those, I feel like not 100% ready yet. Because people who's, I'm not sure everyone's vaccinated, and that's not enough to not get infected. But you will see that the deaths have gone down, which is a good sign.
So I would love to know who's actually on the call with us today. I'd love for people to sign in and let me know if it's just the two of us, or actually I see Nancy Aronson's here, another one of my New Jersey contacts. I think it's so important to engage the audience as much as possible. And Nancy was on my first one last week.
I saw that.
So I would like to know from your perspective, since you saw it, we just did it. What was your take on how two introverts made it work?
Made it work really well. I want to get these labels out. I really do. I was part of a mastermind an hour ago. We were in our weekly session. And this guy just went on, and he's a dear friend of mine, so I say it with love and respect. And he was like, that guy's doing it. He's got this energy on screen. I can't do it. And he's meeting all these people. I can't do it. I'm like, that's a cop-out, and I'm calling you out on that. So when people use it as a crutch, I don't love that. But I mean, you were like two people having a natural conversation, and at the same time adding value, which at the end of the day is relatable.
And I think one of the things you and I both kind of have an understanding about is the whole issue of long-term unemployment and the whole process of job search and the whole back and forth. And you tell it like it is, just like, others I know. I mean, and not sure, well, based on your experience. And I think that's the most important thing, because those of us like myself that have been going through it, we can definitely be genuine in that way.
Yeah. You do not know somebody's pain till you have walked in their shoes.
And I think it's also there's different types of pain too. I mean, you can share pain with a family, but even going with people who are going through it with you. I think it's so important to really feel comfortable sharing certain things. I mean, I know in my situation, my family would say, how many interviews did you have today? How many jobs have you applied for? And they mean well, but it's like, okay.
Yeah. Ken, I don't know if anybody watching can relate with it. It's like a couple desperately trying to get pregnant and getting this question every month, are you pregnant yet? They mean well. It's also small talk, but it's very painful to hear because they're like, hey, when there is news, you'll be the first to know.
I think it's also hard because when I was meeting people, whether it was in my son's sports events or something like that, I'd have someone come up to me, hi, Ken, how are you? Where are you working now? And it's like, well,
it's small talk and they don't mean anything by it. But for someone who's in that situation, it's a very easy trigger.
I know. So I'd be curious for the people on the call. I see a couple of other people I know from New Jersey. Are there any things that you wanted to share you feel comfortable sharing? Because I try to do this every Tuesday from 1 to 2 and share some of my best practices. Sonal and I have gone through this before in different ways, and we agree that really there's a lot of wrong stuff that's going on out there, and really, I'm a Don Quixote person. I want to do all this great stuff, but at the same time, I'm also realistic.
Yeah, I agree.
So Nancy, this is a very true thing here. Many people have never been unemployed, just don't understand it's not that easy to get a job. And that is so true, because what I find now is, you hear about all the places that are hiring. We want to hire you. We want to hire you. And it's all service jobs. And I understand that to some extent, but there's so many bells and whistles and hoops to go through to get interviews for jobs. And I call it the pink unicorn. There's all different things. I mean, they're hiring for job specs, not hiring people.
No, and Nancy, to add to that, it's like you should have now big things are picking up, 900,000 new jobs. That's what I heard, etc. There's so many moving targets, right, Ken? There's the job specs, which change. There's the macroeconomic thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we overlook is our mindset. And specifically, like you said, you're going to your kid's football game. It's not true for everyone, but I can speak from experience. There's a shame.
Oh, definitely.
Where we'd rather hide that aspect of our lives, and just bringing it up every time is such a trigger, and takes us to our dark place, because there's elements of worthiness, self-worth, validation that come from holding that steady paycheck, month on month paycheck. Now that pain, now you can have the best coaches in the world and all of that stuff. It's like someone said the other day, I was saying something about my kids. I was just, whining, but I was also I was venting. And this person gave me like so much advice on a WhatsApp message. It was like this long. She's never had a kid. So I'm not saying she doesn't know what she's talking about. But yes, it's very different when you're in it and you're going through the motions, because the sympathy, this is how you should be doing things. It's very important to have that filter when you're unemployed for particularly more than 6 months. For some people, it's coming close to a year. It's very important to they mean well.
Hey, I'm going to post a couple of comments in a second. I'll speak from my experience. I don't know if it's still the case, but for guys, it's a little different when it happens, because that's what guys talk about, work, sports, and that stuff. And when I was out 2008, 2009, I actually volunteered at my son's PTO, and I never felt more welcomed. And yes, it was all women and all that, and I know women communicate differently than men and all that, but I just felt a sense of self-worthiness, and I think that's a big part of it. And it gave me at least the strength to get through it and actually to start saying things. So I'm going to put a couple of comments in the chat over here. Sarah says, she feels embarrassed because I've been looking for jobs. And, I'll say this about the second part. It's not that you're not competent. Most places are looking for a person that does not exist. And then more times than not, they realize when the person doesn't exist, they have to change the job spec. And then by then, they have to go back through the process again. I mean, at least that's what I've been told. I don't know if you find
I think, Sarah, I'm going to challenge you here. I don't know you. So don't take this the wrong way, please. Those feelings of incompetence are exacerbated,
right?
With what are my friends and my family and my colleagues, who I don't care two hoots about, what are they thinking about me right now? It's there in the back of your head, whether you admit it or not. You want to be the like no nibbles on the job. Yeah, you want to be like, yeah, I crushed it. Like, Donald was saying.
Any nipples on the job yet?
Yeah, I got it. So I am successful. Now, hence, I'm more worthy of your time, or, even simple things like picking up the phone and calling, right? When some of us, like, I quit my job, I didn't have a job in hand and I was completely lost. And calling up people, excuse me, could I speak with Donald? Yeah, who shall I say is calling? My name is Sonal. From, so it's like, I'm not from that company anymore. I don't have that title, so I'm not that important. So that, I think the shame that I spoke about came from me within, and it was less about what people thought about me. But back then, it was magnified. So it was like entering a room, kids PTO meeting, parent-teacher meeting. I wonder if they don't care. Like, they have so much of their own drama going on, but we have this magnifying glass, like everyone's looking at us.
Mm-hmm. You know what I did back then is I created a networking group at a Starbucks, and I just said, let's all, and it was just a bunch of guys, and said the whole thing was just to talk, get stuff out, say things that we all would understand, and it helped. And the group didn't necessarily stay that long, but I made some friends that I still stay in touch with now. And I think that's the thing that's missing is the camaraderie. When you're working, it's a different camaraderie, and
that's true.
Networking is.
Ken, you're a better person than I am, because when I was unemployed and I see Nancy saying almost 2 years. Nancy, for me, it was 2.5. I'd also had a kid, so I decided it wasn't the right time yet. I was not the most social person at the time. I didn't want the questions coming up about my career situation. So and I'm very extroverted. So this is very like a lot of effort for me to say, we're not going there today. I don't want to talk to this person. So thankfully, it didn't come up in interviews, because in the interviews, I was like, I have to bring my A game. But when it came to socializing, I didn't think that this could be a support system, which going back, I wish I could tell myself that. As opposed to, I'm alone, I'm in it to win it, and it's my problem, and I have to do it alone.
I found out the people that we met, we were all friends. It wasn't like I was strangers, but I found out from my wife, who said, Matt just lost a job 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, he seems no different to me, and so I just took him aside. I said, you want to have a cup of coffee and catch up? And we did. And all of a sudden it's like, you don't know this, Matt, but I've been out too. And he's like, really?
Yeah. Sarah, I think to come back to that point on competence, I felt very low on competence when it happened the second time. Like, there, I was like, something's wrong with me. Like, why can't I just stay? Like, it was corporate restructuring, all of that, COVID, tomato. But I was like, why me? Why again? And I believe this is the closest thing to anyone I've spoken with, including people in my close family who've been through divorce twice. Like, they completely blame themselves, so those feelings of shame, etc., are again magnified. So it's so important to have that right circle of friends who trust you, who believe in you, and you're like, hey, we're here for you.
I look at it as a grieving process, because I know when I lost my parents at different times, at different stages of it, and I look at job search to some extent in that way. Yes. But I got to be honest. I mean, I've been consulting the last 10 plus years, and one of the reasons I started is I didn't want to be terminated anymore. I wanted to have a certain level of control. which, and maybe that was my thing, but I will never forget when it happened to me the first time. And it was one of those things. They said, you know, you go into HR and you look who's there, and it's like, this is not good. And then they make you sign something because it was a confidentiality agreement.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
And I was able to say, look, I want to have my attorney check it and all that.
Yeah. No, I know very well. Because Ken, I was in HR. So not only have I laid people off and done it with so much like respect and empathy,
Right.
because I've been on the other side, and holy heck, it's you can soften the blow as much as you can. It's still a blow.
But then it's like you can't even clean out your desk. They just want you out. You can't.
There's somebody behind you because they're watching you, and like,
I don't want you to go back to the desk and delete files and do stuff. Yeah. But the hardest thing for me was actually going home. It's like, how was your day, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay. And we had just bought a house like 7 months before.
Oh.
So that was like the perfect storm. And
yeah, I always ensured that these people had, I had called them a taxi. Because emotionally, men, women, whatever, you know, not everyone's in a state to say, I'm fine to drive. I mean, I can't live with that. Should anything happen.
And I don't want to be Debbie Downers here, but I think it's important to recognize that when people are out of work, forget the in transition thing, whatever the word is, there's a certain level of understanding that we all have to have. And even though we may be smiling at times and people want to put their best foot forward and all that, there is an aspect to it. And you want to feel comfortable with a few people. I mean, I know my limits are, and I'm here to help and support people, but you want to find people in your close network that you can talk to and even vent to. Venting is so important.
Yeah.
Forget about your system.
I think if you don't vent, it's the volcano. It's just waiting to erupt, and that looks like anything awful. A worst case scenario, a heart attack, a stroke. Best case scenario, you know, you feel better in the moment because it's out. I think that I can speak for myself and a few friends of mine. It's very important to do the venting, to feel bad, to feel shame. Just like you said, it's a grieving process. And then at some point, you hit a new low. And you know when that low happened or it's about to happen. And I remember very specifically for me, it was a dinner party. It was the rare occasion that I decided to go out with my friends. And I just kept complaining about how everything is wrong. The hiring managers are nuts. They don't know what they're talking about. Everyone's wrong and I'm right. And I was just normal. And on the drive back home with my husband, he was like, what the heck was that? And I was like, what? Like, nothing. Like, what do you mean? He's like, and then he told me and he repeated my own words back to me. And I was like, okay, I don't recognize myself anymore. I'm irritable and all of that. So it looks like different things to different people. But the good thing is when you know you're there or you're in that neighborhood, there's only one way and that's up. But that first step up is so important because if you're going to be staying there and blame the president, blame the economy, blame COVID for everything, no one wants to be around you anymore. You know, like Debbie Downer is a negative Nelly. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that looks like, the climb back up.
I know for me, and I think a lot of, the first thing I said to everyone is you have to go out there and volunteer. You have to attend events. You have to get some training. And it's an opportunity in some cases to do something you never would have had a chance to do before. And people, once they get that light bulb for whatever it is, it's like, you know, I have time to do all the things I never had time to do. And I look at it as a grass is always greener thing. You think when you have a job, it's great, but then you wish you were out. And then when you're out, you wish you had a job. You know, it's trying to find that balance.
Yeah. And everyone's different. With me, I was just a very organized person when I was working. All my bills would be paid in time. And when I was home, you would think I had more time. I was a complete mess. So it's important to recognize yourself, have that level of self-awareness, because then you can make a plan. Mm-hmm. What does it look like for a month and 60 days and 90 days? And whose help do you need? And who, you know, outplacement, coaching, resume, LinkedIn. In my time, it was not even like, even for you, LinkedIn wasn't as big a deal. as it is now, or at least I didn't tap it.
I think it's also important for people to keep treating themselves. Don't feel just because you're out of work, you can't afford to have a cup of coffee sometimes, or going out and have some, used to be going to a movie, not as much anymore, but treat yourself and be kind to yourself, whether it's going to a gym or whether it's just taking a day off, because otherwise you're not going to get a balance. And I'm speaking from experience here, and I'm sure some people, others are as well. It's whatever works for you, because you're not defined by a job.
And you deserve it. Like sounding like L'Oreal, I mean, you deserve it. And I will be happy when, or I'll get a massage when, who has seen tomorrow? Who knows what's going to happen?
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, you live for the day, and I think it's made me empathetic, probably more so because I not only can walk the walk and talk the talk, but it's important to listen sometimes. I made the mistake in the very beginning of saying, these are the 10, 25 things you should do. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Not everyone wants to be bombarded like that.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to say is, back to Sarah's point, I think there's a judgment, massive judgment. What's wrong with me? All of that. That's really important to think that we do not speak like this with our friends who are going through transitions. Why are we doing that to ourselves? Because I did massive amount of judgment.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true. The hardest thing, your job doesn't define you. It's really about your skills and your personality. And
I agree. I think that your career and the choice of job that you have today, it doesn't define you, but it's a big part of you.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, I don't want to forget that. So the not having a job is very temporary, but who you are, who do you show up as outside of your, self, outside of your being? What is your contribution in the world? I think that's important to get honed down and get that together, because it's a huge part of our mental health.
I think, and to further, I think when people talk about they want to make a career change, you have to be realistic on what that career change is. You're not going to just wake up one day and go into pharma or something like that. You want to have realistic expectations, because I think that's one of the misses too. Because I've talked to different recruiters, and you may have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have the specific background, or you're not going to like it. I go back to something which is a big term now, which is the Great Resignation. I love the term Great Resignation. A lot of people are deciding they're not going to go back into the workforce. They're going to do their own thing, their business or something. And, I go back and forth about this, because I think, I don't know who's to blame here for this, and I don't want to make a blame game about it, but it seems like it's such an easy thing to fix. If everyone just kind of agreed on what the issues were.
That's the thing. And Ken, you and I have been around the block a little bit. 2008, 2009, massive recession. I remember graduating with a very expensive MBA after years of experience in 2009. And I remember very clearly, I was in HR. That job brought me to Europe. And I remember very clearly seeing it and speaking with my VP HR and all of that stuff, saying people are hanging on to jobs like dear life. We're going to wait and see what happens in 2011, because the economy is going to open up. And these are the ones who are undervalued, underappreciated, underpaid will be the first ones to jump ship. It's exactly what's happening today. There's a fancy word for it now, so the Great Recession. But it's all about the curtains have, opening up the stage, and you're seeing behind the scenes. You're like, I don't want to go back to that, because I have smelled and seen and tasted a different life. And it's not so much about remote and full-time for me. It's not. It's about unfair practices.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole discussion. I mean, it's like age discrimination. It's there. You can see it's there, but you can't really prove it. And there's all different things they do in a job spec and all that. But my thing is these are all things that are out there. It's like you have to control what you can control. I mean, and I love what Drew just put in here. I'm a husband, father, son, brother, uncle, well before I'm a manager. And that's absolutely true, because my family, as upset as they were, I was still dad. I was still the one to do stuff, and that doesn't change. And that, you want to, as much as possible, take advantage of the fact that you have some time. And great, I get that it's frustrating and people have needs, but it's making lemonade out of lemons, and it's easier said than done. I know. I'm not here, but if you have the right people around you to help and support you, and networking is a big part of it, you just never know where it's going to go. But it's having the right mindset.
I think when you have the right people around you, like going back to your analogy, you can make lemonade, but you might also just end up making lemon tart, lemon drizzle cake.
Yeah.
So that is a secret weapon in your sort of arsenal. And I wonder if we can help. If there's anyone who's got a specific question, Ken, this would be like a great time to talk about it.
It would be great. I know that one thing I hear a lot about is the disconnect between HR, age difference between younger people who are basically as old as my kids interviewing me, and they have a different mindset, and they don't know how to interview in and of itself.
Yeah, that's always going to be there. You're going to have younger folks who don't know what they're talking about. You're going to have people say you want a woman for the job or you want a man for the job. You're going to have people not say, but think, I prefer someone of this ethnicity or race. That's always going to be there. My question is, what are you going to do about it?
Is anyone else experiencing an interview process that's very demanding? Yeah, that is out there. And that's one of the things which I don't get. It's almost like, and I think I talked about with someone else. I think I talked about Jack Kelly. Managers are afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. I also chatted with Jack about it, and it's like they're so scared to make decisions right now because particularly in consensus-driven organizations, I remember very happy to pass the buck. But the thing is, Sarah, it is demanding. What can you do about it to ensure that you bring your A game every single time? Because you want to land a good job right now, but it doesn't have to be the one forever. It's a stepping stone till the next one comes along. I think that's really important because we don't have to be married to our work, because they aren't married to us.
Definitely. And this happens a lot too. People have never gone through this before.
Yeah. Learning experience, Sarah, it's making you so strong, that the resilience the quote of resilience you're going to have, you can write a book about it. Like you can help others who are going to go through this in your circle of friends and family simply because you have more maturity and self-awareness.
And I think the big thing is when you ask for help, ask for specific help and questions. Don't be afraid. None of us bite. And we're all very willing to help to the best of our ability, but you should never want to go through it alone.
No, absolutely. And it's how you show up and saying, hey, I saw that you spoke about this. And I have a very specific question. Would you have 15 minutes to talk about it? It's just, the more specific the question is, and you reach out, you don't know who knows someone who knows someone. So I'm a huge fan of reaching out and following it up with a tracker. Because I feel good that day, like I've done something. Yes, I've applied to 5 jobs. There's some people who vilify it. Job applications are dead. Resumes are dead. I don't think so. I mean, they're living in their own head. The real world still wants to see a resume, still wants to interview you, and they still have a very basic applicant tracking system, nothing fancy. Mm-hmm. So if you can double your chances, triple your chances by doing all 3 and firing multiple guns at the same time, why not?
I think it's so important. You learn a lot about yourself going through this.
Yeah.
You find you get your strength, and it does, I think, to some extent. You learn, and it's almost a good time. I mean, not do you ever want to fail, but you fail, and you just learn from your experiences that way.
You don't even fail. I think you only fail if you didn't apply what you learned.
Okay, so again, it's a good way to put it. Instead of pass or fail, it's how you position things. I think that is so important. I think people that go through this, even being on a conversation like this, there are people here, and if you let other people know that there are different support groups and networking groups out there, there's no shame in it. You'd be surprised how many people out there are going through it or have gone through what you've gone through. And there's a lot to be, to really understand about that. So now, of course, we have Joey Himpelbarb, who's very smiling, and he says, well, it's true. The connections are not about like Joey and me, but it's who Joey knows, who I may know. And by learning as much as I can about the person, it helps me help them. It's the softer connections for sure.
I think that's really important. And I'll give you this example. I had someone on my podcast who said, because she interviews a lot of people for her company, she said, if you approach interviews as a relationship starting tool, and best case scenario, they hire you. Worst case scenario, you're connected on LinkedIn. Keep commenting, keep staying in touch. She said, I always view it as business development and relationship development. That I know somebody who heard that episode completely changed the game for them, because it wasn't win or lose, zero sum game, but more about, I know one more person today.
Right. And then it's also about the follow-ups too. I think there's a delicate balance. I mean, you want to be empathetic, and people will be empathetic back to you. Don't assume that everyone isn't going through the same stuff you are just because they have a title.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important.
I want to plug here somebody. Her name is Marty Constant, and she posted something like an hour ago. And she said, the second you lose your job, you have converted into a business owner by default. And a lot of job seekers, they look at self-employed coaches and consultants, and they look at their LinkedIn profile. They're like, I can't do that. You need to do that because this is your brand. I'm like, that's exactly why you need to do it. You are a business of one, and you think you're the only one who goes through rejections. Hello. Like, I want somebody on my podcast. I've been interacting very gently for the last 3 months. She's a big name, and she finally said yes 3 days ago. The point is just, it's the same thing. You want something, they may be able to give it to you. Have some self-respect. Yeah. But people are busy. It's not that they rejected you. They're distracted like anything. Doorbell ringing, dog, baby. There's not even like pandemic related stuff. We've got less attention span than a goldfish, for crying out loud. So I emailed the guy, no Sonal, that's bad advice. I emailed him, he didn't get back to me. When did you do it? 16th of June. I'm like, come on. We drown in emails every day. And by the way, if you did it 3 times, it didn't work. Where else do they hang out? Maybe Twitter, maybe LinkedIn, maybe Instagram. There's always a way. And if it's a shut door, you know it. But I don't know. There's something about not giving up.
I think one of the things which I always wondered, I think some people are afraid to say deliver bad news. They just hope you'll just go away and they'll just move on to the next thing. I know a couple of recruiters have said to me, it's the hardest thing to do is actually say to someone who I really think should have gotten the job that they're not going to have it. How do I position it? And that's got to be hard.
Telling someone they haven't got a job, it's much easier than ghosting. Let me tell you that. If you care about your long-term reputation, it's, nice reply, you were great, but we found someone. That's fine. I will respect that recruiter a heck of a lot more. But the recruiter who disappears, I mean, come on. Companies are not the only ones who blacklist people. Come on, Ken. You and I remember every single time we got horrible treatment from somewhere. I will never buy from that company. I will tell 10 friends. When we're treated like crap, we don't forget.
And I still haven't forgotten after all these years. And there's a certain company I will never ship with again for that reason.
No. Yeah, I wonder if that company doesn't sound like a rainforest.
Well, we
moving on.
It's brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. So, again, I love the second part of this, that met some incredibly wonderful people. And I think that's very important. The challenge with all of this in general is just to be aware of yourself. Because Marty Latman says every job is a temporary job, and it's true. I have a much bigger admission now for I care much more. I think more about my family and my friends, and I used to kind of, I won't say take them for granted, but they're going to be the things that are going to stay in my life all the time through thick and thin.
Sure.
and again, I mean, we all have our circle of people. And I mean, again, I met you, but I'm going to tell the story again. Again, it's one thing to meet, but we want to have a conversation. It's not just a connection. And I was scared to death of reaching out to some people myself, including yourself. I mean, you know, again, imposter syndrome, call it what you want to, but I mean, I want to talk to people, and that was missing, especially with the pandemic. And then it's just a great thing all around.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something funny here. In in Europe or in Asia, you see the letters WC, and that means it's a loo. It's a public restroom,
I just
right?
want to say, Nancy, the chat is going to be available underneath this video. You'll see all the comments there. So it's not a chat per se. So when it's over, you can see all these comments there. Everyone has said something on there. So it's not like a Zoom thing. So when you see this is done, you go back to the recording.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Because she's on the phone, she can't see that. No, I was just going to say that WC is water closet. So that's outside the United States or in Europe or Asia. That means it's a public restroom, right? Mm-hmm. I always think of WC when I reach out to someone and I think, what's the WC scenario? Worst case scenario. And it's never as bad as I think it is. So it's like the fears, they go down the toilet when I think of WC. Worst case, they don't get back. It's very rare they don't get back. Best case, they say yes. So the worst case is so huge, bigger than what it actually is. So, and I know this from experience because that fear you're talking about is paralyzing.
I would say one thing that helped me out a lot is I journaled. I wrote about my experiences. I was going through it, my good and bad days. And years later, when I went back and read it, I mean, it's a good thing to do. It's like, this was a good day. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And you realize it later on. And it's like, that was one of the things that helps me now, because I think back to what I wrote and I think I have it saved somewhere. It's a great thing to go back to because you see the ups and downs for sure. So Sarah wanted to know about ageism. We've all experienced it to some extent, and sometimes it's in job specs, sometimes it's in this salary's too low for someone with your experience and all that stuff.
I definitely have views on it, Sarah, and my views are not very popular. So bear with me here. I have to give you this disclaimer. I know there's a lot of people who mean very well, and some of them are great friends of mine. And their advice is to tweak your resume and LinkedIn so that it doesn't show your graduation year or your first job or second job, etc. I don't like that advice because I feel like we get better with time, like wine. So the company that values this, that is the company for me. And if I have to change myself because then I appear younger or more attractive to a recruiter, I don't know. I know people who do both. There are people who I can see 1981 graduation year on LinkedIn. And then I see people whose first job started in 97. But let's just say it doesn't look like their first job started in they've been told not to. So do what feels right to you, Sarah. You cannot control what people think about you or your age, but the right company will want you and will want that you're whatever. I'm 42. Will want you because you're 49, 52, 60, whatever. And the thing that doesn't bother them, all the thing that makes you special and unique, they'll want to pay top dollar for it. It's just that you haven't found them yet. It's been 6 months. I get it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
So this is a great comment from Donald, and it's very true. I think there has to be just a general mindset. You can go to a place like Glassdoor or something where there's a lot of reviews and things, and you have to take things with a grain of salt.
There's something called a negativity bias. You can Google it. It's a real thing. So if 60,000 people like a video of mine on YouTube and 300 don't like it, my mind races to 300. Why didn't they like it? What's wrong with it? How could I do it? It's ridiculous, but that's the way it is. So negativity bias can affect you as well in your job search big time.
And it can be little things. You lose your self-esteem to some extent. You think, what is it about me? And the answer is it's nothing about you. It's really about them. In some cases, they're missing an opportunity to hire someone. They're not looking at, this is not a philosophy. If you have that mindset, eventually it will work. Now you need help and support, and I don't mean necessarily paid, but you need people to really be able to reach out to you. So I want to be respectful of your time, Sonal, because I think you have a call. So I was going to end the call in a few minutes, if that's okay.
No, that's okay. But I really want to know if Sarah's,
Yeah, I don't want to cut it off, but I also want to know that, you have a.
Yeah, ageism. I mean, I just, you got to talk about how you're different and special because of your age, not in spite of it.
Talk about being a mentor. You'll be able to mentor people with your past experience, all that stuff. Because especially
there's so many things, Ken. For example, you reach a certain age, you don't have mortgage anymore because kids have left the house, whatever. There's certain things which are different about you, and I just feel like when you lean into something that comes naturally to you, that's a gift. That's a good thing.
Even being able to work across cross-functional teams remotely. I mean, there was a time, and I was a developer. I was on call 24/7 at different times, and you learn after a while to make decisions. And everyone is like thinking about, oh my God, this working from home is a new thing, and how am I ever going to do it? And people figure it out, but you have that experience in the past and something to share.
And that's exactly the thing, Ken, because you're an early adopter. I mean, my coach, my mentor and my coach has been on Twitter since 2003, 2004. She's in her 60s now. So when you're an early adopter, it's a lot more impressive than a digitally native millennial because they have been born into it. So when you make that list of things which are your strength, whatever it looks like, in spite of your age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, whatever, doesn't matter, but focusing on the skills and what you bring to the table, how do you solve their problem, how do you cure their pain, you're gold.
It's the same thing. Like, what are your main pain points? What do you need? What do you need help with right away? And when you go on an interview, make sure you have those final questions.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with saying afterwards, is there anything else that I can share with you, or anything else that I may have missed that you have a concern about, perhaps, however you want to phrase it? You want to make sure, and there's probably better wording than that, but you want to
that ending is very important. When you finish the meeting, so important, because you're there for a job, you're not there for a chit chat. Unless it's very clear, it's an exploratory conversation. That's okay. But if it's an interview, you want to know, hey, how did I do? What do you think? What are the next steps? It's like asking for the sale. You're a salesperson, and the person who ends the sales call by not asking for the sale, wasted opportunity.
Well, and job seekers are salespeople, and it's for sure.
Always selling your skills to the highest bidder. That's what you're doing.
And sometimes it's a case of, depending on how comfortable you are, seeing that the job is there, going through the job spec and say, what are the two main things on there? I mean, you're trying to really get, because the job spec is written sometimes by 3 or 4 people, and sometimes it's written based on what the person did before, but it may not be what the person has to do now.
Or it was last made in 2009 and the job specs haven't been updated. Doesn't matter. As long as you meet 60%, 70% of the criteria, you're good to apply.
Absolutely. Any other questions or any other comments? I mean, I love this conversation a lot. And for those on the call, next week, we are going to do our first LinkedIn Live with our Tuesday afternoon group.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Can I just plug in a little thing here, Ken, on for Friday?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm live every.
No, it's going to talk about it from the background. I'm so sorry. I should give you the opportunity because it's a great conversation.
No worries, no worries. I'm live every Friday on LinkedIn at 2 p.m. Belgium time. That's 8 a.m. Eastern. And the topic specifically is about resumes and job search. And it's with a LinkedIn, it's with a resume writer who's in Chicago. And this is evergreen. Resumes, I love comparing notes. And these are some of the top resume writers in the United States. I'm very privileged that they're going to be on. So if you guys have specific questions, please don't pay a resume writer, not yet. Take advantage of some of the free resources out there, make use of them. And if you need personalized help, somebody's always there for you. But if you're around 8 a.m. Eastern on Friday, come and join us.
And it's well worth it because, and I know how early it is, but, you definitely want to be there, and you don't have to dress up or anything like that. I mean,
Dude, I don't dress up, and it's my show.
But I mean, I'm in my loungewear at times, and I'm just there. And
who am I? You don't know what pajamas I'm wearing.
You're right. I don't know that I want to see them either, but you don't see it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Appreciate it very much. Have a great rest of the day and great week, and talk soon. Bye.